Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. You got to keep them separated. That's right, the Offspring on this episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. We don't want to keep them separated, really. We want you to join us, iabd.com/Patreon. Become a Patreon member. Get those special privileges. Special privileges? Yeah, you're privileged once you get there. Patreon.com/IABD. Support the show, support the network, support us. We got a lot of seasons to go. $1 a month is going to really go a long way. Patreon.com/IABD. Support Trek there. And by then, who knows? There may be even more of The Offspring on It's All Been Tracked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
And Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. And we are here to talk about The Offspring, a.k.a. Data's Daughter episode. First impressions.
It's hard to get past the name without thinking.
Data's Daughter should have been the name of the episode, right?
I had two alternate titles. One was Gotta Keep Them Separated. And I can't think of another Offspring song right now. I know.
Self-Esteem was one of the other famous ones.
Pretty Fly for a White Guy. That's the other one.
That too, yes.
Yeah. The other one that came to my mind was We Already Used the Child. So they couldn't use, they had to go with The Offspring.
One of the other ones from the other album was Gotta Get Away From Me.
Oh, yeah. I'm curious to see where I end up landing on this, because there's a lot of this episode I liked a lot. I don't know if I loved it, but I said that last week, and I ended up number 2. But I think there's a lot to like here. I have some reservations, but yeah, there's some cool stuff going on.
I would same. I think some of my reservations about what was happening here were mitigated by Picard's reactions at the beginning. We'll get to that later. But other than that, yes.
I actually liked it a lot. If you'd asked me which one was better before we started this, Yesterday's Enterprise or The Offspring, I would have said, I'm really looking forward to Yesterday's Enterprise. I know The Offspring is iconic, but not so much. Instead, I'm like, no, that was a really good episode too.
So I had forgotten about this completely. And it's weird given I saw like the first 1 or 2 episodes of Picard. And it's really weird that this didn't really seem to come up, or the idea of it didn't. It seemed like it was something completely foreign.
That was one of mine. Not really a problem with the episode. It's a problem with my brain. Is that about 35 minutes into the 45-minute episode, I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure there's no way Lal is around after 10 minutes from now, which didn't ruin the ending for me in any way. I just knew something had to happen, obviously. But yeah, man, that's not a problem with the episode. That's a problem with my brain.
I mean, she could have been a reoccurring character.
She could have. I felt like I would have known that, but there's also a good chance I wouldn't have, because I didn't know Gomez.
Well, no, that's a very good point. I mean, for something it feels like this should have been bigger than it was. Mm-hmm. I guess as far as the outcome of something like this, it felt like this should have had more far-reaching mentions and repercussions, or especially, I think, given the outcome, it seemed to imply that this would have been a good explanation for why Data doesn't have emotions, or like getting an emotion chip was so much bigger, because it seemed like he just sort of like went, here you go, accidentally I've given you emotions, and it seemed like that did something.
I think it gets back to something we've hit on a lot, which is this is just 80s, 90s TV, where you didn't have a story arc for the season. Maybe we had character arcs for the season, but not
and this should have been an arc that was more than one episode.
Yeah.
And we already had Troy get a kid for an episode. We need Data to have one as well.
Yeah.
And yet this episode is much, much more famous than Troy's kid episode.
I think this one is better.
Well, when you say famous, though, what measurement are you using for that?
I guess, like, if you think about, if someone was making a list, like the 20 best TNG episodes, or the 20 episodes of TNG you need to watch, I think The Offspring would be on those lists, and often is. I don't think The Child ever is.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But that also could be partly because Data was a much more popular character than Troy. I don't know. But yeah, no, I actually had seen this one before. I remember this one. I didn't feel like it was all that stand out in my memory, but I really, really liked it watching it. We start out with learning that Riker's on personal leave, which I kind of was like, what's his personal leave? I want to know more about this. But then my brain was like, oh, that's just a reason to not have him in the episode. Like, he took this week off, but then he didn't take this week off, and it led to a wonderful punchline.
Oh my God. It was
which we'll talk about when we get to it. We'll talk about when we get to it. But man, I was so excited that was like a tease, like, oh, he's not going to be in this. And then you bring it back at the best moment.
I hadn't caught that. That's
so
great.
Good.
Then in that early scene, Data invites Geordi, Troy, and Wesley, which seemed a little bit random, but okay. I mean, if he was his poker buddies, Wesley wouldn't have been there, and it would have been, I mean, there would have been O'Brien or somebody.
Well, and to that point, Jimmy, initially I was like, is this just a weird opening scene where it's like, oh, Data's messing around with this weird contraption in his whatever office or chambers or whatever, and then it's like,
here comes another mustache or a beard or something.
Right. Oh, he's got a little thing he plays with in his. He's got a Tinker Toy thing, but obviously it was a bigger thing than that.
The more I think about it, though, the more I think it's the best group because Geordi's his best friend and engineer. Wesley is the wonderkind, intelligent. Of course, he's going to be interested in this project. And Troy is who Data does go to with emotional stuff. And this is an emotional thing. And it makes sense to invite the counselor. So it really is perfect group. If only Wesley's pants were zipped all the way up in the back. So it wasn't like hanging open a little bit. Did you guys notice that?
No.
I did not.
As he walked around Law, because the pants go up above his waist. And it was just unzipped down to his waist. But there was like folds of fabric sticking up weirdly behind him.
Interesting.
It was distracting to me.
I wrote the note early on. It was in the scene. I can't remember if this was for me or for the three of them. And I kept spelling LOL, LOL.
I had LOL, but somebody said LOL later.
I think it's LALL.
I think Picard called her LOL.
It's just LAL, which stands for laugh at lol, like the kids did.
Oh my God. That's good. Nice. Wow.
He was good at getting laughs. But no, I wrote, do what now? Because I think Data's like, well, I did this thing. And they just look at him like, what? What are you saying? And then it was such a weird looking, creature that.
I liked the cybernetics lab. I don't know that we've seen before, but I know we'll see it again for other uses, not just building androids. I liked that it had the original Enterprise bridge railing around its side. Did you notice that?
Oh, yeah.
So the platform where you go up where Law was, it was the railing like from the original Enterprise's bridge. The original series.
I like that Data's very progressive because he says Law's going to pick their gender.
Pick their gender.
Yes.
And then was it their race or their...
Yes, the species.
Yeah. Very progressive.
I literally just wrote that. So I remember thinking about it during the episode. Do you think this would have played well, like if somebody had written it that this year? Do you think it would have seemed too?
No, because you can't. Because gender is not binary, unlike Star Trek is trying to pound in our brain for the last 30 years.
Yep.
And the fact that
time out. What?
Law must choose one feels wrong in today's current progressive politics.
All right. Yeah.
Right? Because you would want them to embrace whoever they are, whether they identify with a gender or not, and asking them to choose a gender would be kind of forcing an identification before Law has even had a chance to really learn who Law is.
Yeah.
And I'm purposely not using pronouns here. Yeah. And I think even 3 or 4 years ago, I wouldn't have had a second thought about it, but just everything that's happened in the last year or two with trans rights, it felt a little out of touch to me. When he's like, okay, I'm going to show she's got to pick male or female, and I'm going to show you these examples, which by the way, there was only one human female in the example lineup, which you'd think, they'd have more. I guess that was to save budget, but once Law narrowed into human female, you'd think they'd then show her like 20 human females of different colors and ethnicities.
So Data's more progressive than a lot of the United States, but not super progressive.
Not super.
Well, it means we're going to regress pretty soon, I think.
Back to that opening scene, Wesley claiming to have tried to sneak a peek and knows that Data's kept the lab locked. I mean, I know my mind goes to dirty places, but...
No, but I did the same thing. I did too. Fashion. We've had this conversation before about Marina Sirtis and how she lost a bunch of weight before season 3.
Yep.
She looks amazing. And I know she and Michael Dorn joked about it in that interview I read and I shared with you guys on here. But man, she looks good. And you know what? She knows she does. Because then she's like, you know what? I feel like she was like, you know what? Take a couple inches out of this because I want everyone to know I am. Rip's not the right word, but she is svelte and she looks amazing. That outfit's great. This is the non-progressive part of the podcast where I'm just like, Marina Sirtis looks gorgeous. She looks amazing. She's I mean, she always does, but in this episode especially. But I think it's her, not only, like I said, she's admitted, I lost a bunch of weight. So I was like, put me in that stuff. But yeah, I'll wear a lot less or whatever. And this isn't even a skimpy outfit. This isn't even a Bill T thing. It's just a great outfit for it. I shouldn't even say it's a great outfit. I think she looks good and great and everything this season. So
when you pause, ripped is the first word that popped into my head. I don't know why.
Yeah. Good for her.
We first had that scene where Data shut off Lal, and Data immediately embraced the term father, which surprised me. But as the episode went on, I guess not. It shouldn't have been. And then as we come back from the theme song, Picard is now there. And his main complaint seems to be he was hurt that he wasn't consulted, which feels wrong and out of character to me. And then almost immediately Data's like, no one else in the crew consults you about procreation. And I'm like, whoa, snap.
Yeah.
Picard should have at that moment apologized, but instead he still kept his little dour. And then immediately after that, we get the scene where he's telling Troy, that is not a child, which to me, I'm like, why does that bother him so much? It's like the people that are against gay marriage. And it's like, why is that hurting you? Why does it hurt you that Data's calling this his child?
Yeah. I thought it was before that scene.
No, this was after Picard sees Lal. But then almost immediately after that, Picard says, well, I can't just deactivate a life. So he's got a big problem with Lal.
Oh.
Yeah.
But he also acknowledges that Lal is a life. I don't know. That felt a little disjointed to me.
Yeah. Like, do we see his thought process change over to why he becomes like, well, she's sentient. Or sentient, as he says. We have to do something with it. Or not do something with it. We can't just get rid of it.
These are my two major notes from the episode, actually. No, this whole thing. This is what I was saying. The conversation with Picard in the office with Data. I guess that's what I was thinking you were talking about at first, but that was after those things, that progression. But if you think about it, we had like one of our favorite episodes was the whole thing with the scientist. What was his name?
Maddox.
Yes.
Oh, the Measure of a Man. Yeah.
I mean, that was a huge thing. And Data just goes, okay, let's just make another one. And you can see that's what I saw Picard doing, like holding his head, like, what are you doing? You understand like the implications of what we just went through this.
I was gonna say, I disagree with you, Keith, because what Maddox wanted to do was take Data apart and copy him. What Data is doing is building new life, building upon research that was already there and trying to procreate in the way that humans do, understand another human experience, because he always tries to go through the human experiences. So maybe Picard might see something similar, but I certainly don't think Data views them as similar at all. And I didn't view them as similar at all.
That's not the point. Yeah, I'm not saying that the Data was wrong or whatever. I'm just saying from Picard's perspective, you've got to think about that. He's jumping ahead, and we see what ends up happening is once Starfleet finds out about this, they're going to start thinking about the military implications and then it's this whole human rights thing all over again. And you can kind of see that playing out in his head.
See, I didn't get that. I was just mad at his reaction.
I called it Measure of a Man too. And this
Electric Boogaloo?
Yeah, to me, this was a lesser sequel. Although I still like the episode, as we'll go along. But at some point I was like, when they started having those conversations, I'm like Keith was saying, I'm like, we just had these conversations. And I know this is slightly different. And they do say that. But some of it is the same, where you've got, and we'll get into Nicholas Coster, another Commodore, essentially. Although he's an admiral. Admiral? I think they did enough to distinguish it. But I think in some ways, for me, in my mind, as much as we talk about recency bias, I was like, I just watched Measure of a Man. So, but even though I know we didn't. But
you see my point there is just, we get, I mean, the episode makes up for it eventually. In that moment, I was thinking the same thing that I thought that Picard was probably thinking at that moment. Like, what are you doing? Why this is going to cause so much trouble? And I think that's the reason why he was like, why didn't you consult me? This is a major thing to try to,
Yeah, I guess I see that point as you explain it, but that was not part of my thinking on this at all. And I feel like he could have reacted better and talked to Data about that in that way instead of just...
Yeah, that's the back end of what I had written there. It was possible that was like one of those writing conceits to just try to keep from spoiling what was going to happen for the audience, in the sense of like he didn't want to like hammer into the conflict that was coming up with the Commodore arriving. It's just kind of in thinking about it. Let's not spoil it yet. Let's let it unfold.
Just to jump ahead, does the Commodore take an entire starship to go meet them?
Yeah,
that is. Unconscionable.
Why?
Because that starship should be doing medical physicals or delivering medical supplies or seeking out new
Vaccines.
life and new civilization.
I mean, no, I didn't. That didn't bother me.
I felt like he could have been on a smaller ship. Like,
So that actually skips a couple of my notes, but yeah, as soon as Admiral Halftel comes on board there on the show, Picard does a total 180 in how he addresses it, and I did appreciate that like he can express his concerns to Data, but he's going to defend Data when the chips are down and when Starfleet interferes. I did like that they wanted to take Lal to the Daystrom Annex. We know about Dr. Richard Daystrom from the original series. Yeah. And Bruce Maddox works at the Daystrom Institute on Earth, which we'll see again in Star Trek Picard. We'll get to see the Daystrom Institute and their continued research into artificial life forms. So it's all part of that continuity. I like that there's a Daystrom Annex nearby.
Can you refresh my memory about Daystrom and for the audience, I guess, who might just have jumped in suddenly?
The ultimate computer. You remember that episode?
Was he the Commodore in that?
He was the doctor.
Yeah, he's the doctor. So he
built the computer.
He built the computer and installs it. And
all right.
Backing up
it doesn't go well.
Backing up just a little bit, Lal has much better skin than Data. Why hasn't he upgraded his skin?
Oh, that reminds me. And I told Colleen I was too lazy to do the research, but she asked if Brent Spiner had a lot of issues with the makeup as far as his skin and stuff over the years. I don't know if you guys knew that or not.
I think it was uncomfortable, but I don't think he had an allergic reaction or anything.
Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah. So anyway, but that's a good point.
He should.
Yeah.
Then we get a learning montage, which felt so 1980s.
It was
teaching Lal different things.
I enjoyed it for different reasons. So the first thing is when she takes the drink, and it's a Jerry Lewis bit. So I always loved it. I used to do that bit. I probably haven't done it at least 2 or 3 years, but I wrote
not 30 years, not 40 years, but 2 or 3.
Yeah. So I always loved that bit. He did it for every telethon and a bunch of times. You know, he would do the thing where he'd start talking. Remember, hers was a little different, but I wrote down Jerry Lewis bit. I wrote down women are funny. Yeah. Women are funny. As you guys may or may not remember, late in his life, he was like, women aren't funny.
So is it safe to say
God, I remember that now that you say it.
Yeah.
Is it safe to say you liked Hallie Todd as Lal?
I did. Yeah, I did. I thought she was engaging. I thought she's funny there.
My note was that Lal was comedy gold. That was my note. And it was very, very much a lot of things that Stephen was saying there. Just once it got going, I was on board.
You'll be happy to know that actress did eventually land a sitcom, and that's what she's most famous for after this. She played Lizzie McGuire's mom in Lizzie McGuire. Named one of the top 10 TV moms of all time by CNN.
Well.
But other than Lizzie McGuire, this is what she's best known for.
Yeah.
So Nicholas Coster played Admiral Halftel. He's best known for Santa Barbara and All the President's Men.
I know. I knew him from Santa Barbara because I would watch that growing up. And then he's been in everything.
More recently, he's been in The Bay for the last 9 years.
I still couldn't place him. He looked familiar.
Nicholas Coster was in he's another one of those guys who was in every 70s TV show, 70s, 80s. He guest starred a lot. He's great character.
He's 172 credits.
Yeah.
I thought he must say years old. I was like, Jesus, what?
Well, he was older than I thought because I was like, 33. He was that old, but yeah, he was. And I guess here I'll just talk about Starfleet. We've talked about this before. They're almost always wrong. Yeah. And we've had this issue before. We had it in I'll call it the conspiracy episode, but I feel like they're like, no, this is the way things are happening. You need to deal with it. And they don't there's never I'm sending you over the orders, or they never really give a justification. Here's why I'm being given this power to do it. There's just that's the deal. I'm the admiral, and you have to listen. I guess that's probably the way it works in the military. I'm clearly not a military guy, but
none of the good captains that we've seen want to get promoted to admiral. So it's just the bad captains that become admiral.
You're right. Desk jockeys, admiral. Yeah, it's just a lot of take my word for it. I've been given this power. And Nicholas Coster's played a lot of these same kind of characters. They're just jerks.
Well, Stephen, can I mention that you made me think of the line, which I think fits here. I am Starfleet.
I wrote that down too, which that's another Star Wars ripoff because, as we know, Senator Palpatine, I am the Senate. So I think they stole it from it. I am Starfleet. I am the Senate. Speaking of I am lines, and Jimmy, you're the only one who can really speak to this. There's the part where Admiral, whatever Nicholas Coster's Admiral character,
Aftel.
Yeah, he's like, "Well, I'm a parent," which I always think is bullshit. I should back up. It depends on what comes after that. I'm a parent. But lots of times it's a justification for I know a little bit more than you because I had a kid or whatever.
To me, that was no different than the guy who's like, I'm not sexist. I have a daughter or whatever.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, because he followed up with like, that has nothing to do with what you just said.
Yep.
And again, so what you're saying is you're a bad parent, which I think is kind of what Picard says to him. Like,
I mean, it doesn't mean he's a bad parent. He just clearly does not recognize that Data as a parent. Like, he's not putting them in the same category as Picard didn't initially.
Yeah,
either.
and to be honest, I didn't either. I was like, that's kind of weird. And then eventually I was like, oh no,
Well, I just wanted, but since you mentioned that, Data said earlier at the beginning, he asked, "Is the Admiral a parent?" Didn't he? I mean, it was kind of clunky if you think about the way that it follows through to this. But
the school teacher, when Law met Data, talked to the school teacher, who was the third notable guest star in this episode. Lieutenant Ballard was played by Judy Ann Elder, who's best known for Martin and Murphy Brown in 7 Pounds. And she took over as the mom on the last half of the last season of Family Matters.
I saw that. I didn't realize that was a thing.
Huh.
Yeah, apparently Jo Marie Payton, who played Harriet Winslow on Family Matters. Family Matters is actually a spinoff of Perfect Strangers. Her character was on that first.
That's right.
What?
And reportedly, she was unhappy that the show had shifted its focus to Urkel and off of her. And so she quit halfway through the final season, and they replaced her with this actress.
Wow.
Crusher giving Data advice was wonderful. Good use of Crusher, finally.
Yeah.
I like that he called her a good parent.
This to me, this points out how good an actress Gates McFadden is. The amount she was able to convey reacting to him calling her that, like, I'm not so sure, but I'll take that's a compliment, and like all the thoughts she conveyed in just that one look, I was like, that's a good actress.
Calling her what?
A good mother.
Oh.
Yeah. She didn't. Yeah, Crusher didn't seem like she necessarily believed it.
Yeah, she was like, well,
I liked that choice.
Maybe I am. Yeah, it was. Everything she was able to convey in that was amazing.
I also loved Law calling Guinan old. Of Data saying, he said, "I'd work with you. I could learn from you because you're so old."
Yeah, there was a great little pause where that played across her face and just nothing. It was fine. It was great. Just
because Guinan knows she's old.
Yeah,
she's not going to fight it.
But no, I thought that the turn sort of like, obviously she needs my help to not do things like this in social situations. I thought I read there.
Well, immediately we get into Guinan talking to her about sex, which is also hilarious.
I thought all that stuff was good. When she tells Wesley he needs a haircut, does he really need a haircut? I thought they could have found something else for her to harp on him on.
Yeah.
And then he's like, parent.
My last couple of things are really about Data's parenting, which I thought were fun. Excuse me. One of them, actually, the thing with her asking a lot of questions and Data essentially saying, not in so many words, "Go the F to sleep," just kind of like click. Yeah, here are your answers. Click. Go to sleep now.
Turned her off.
That discussion about the kids laughing at her, that I like that so much, and it isn't necessarily something about discrimination per se, but it was, I think, a very good way to portray some of the conversations that parents have to have with their children at certain points.
Yeah, and I have a note on that, which is completely different, but I thought it was handled well too. Just, in this instance, it's because she was older and just very different, but her difference could have been a lot of things. Her being with younger children made me think of one, Billy Madison. Two, this is a little more obscure, but I don't know if you guys remember the episode where Beavis and Butthead had to go back to like second grade.
Yeah, I do.
I think it's Butthead comments that all the girls in the class are flat. So
I didn't remember that part, but
so that's all I could think of
God.
watching it was like, oh, this is, yeah. Which actually those came out soon after this, but I don't think they stole from Star Trek, but maybe they did.
Law used a contraction, which Data can't.
Yeah.
Which I was like, okay, she's got better skin, and now she's using contractions. What's going on, Data?
that was an interesting way to broach what was going to happen as far as the advancements and again getting back to the emotional differences. I guess I want a good explanation for why he cannot use contractions. It seems like he's aware of the concept. Why would you just not be able to do it?
He's just not programmed to do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure they've ever really got into why he can't.
That's I don't know.
But he doesn't. He doesn't use. But Lore does, and Lore was built first.
No, you're right. You're about the precedent for that. I remember that being like the twist or whatever, like the little thing they were to use for the difference. But it still doesn't make scientific sense.
You know what? I can't put G's on the end of gerunds, so you know.
Yeah, maybe Dr. Soong just wanted to build in some ways to tell them apart. I mean, he was eccentric. He was weird. He could do weird things. I don't know. I'm up to where Riker enters and Law kisses him, and then Riker gets scared and runs from Dad.
So good.
It's good. And so I just looked up who directed this episode, and it was a first-time director named Jonathan Frakes, aka Riker.
Oh, I know that guy.
That's why he wasn't in it.
Probably a large part of why he wasn't in most of it. He will direct 8 episodes of Next Gen, 3 DS9, 3 Voyager, a couple of the Next Gen films. And then he's had a long directing career in between of lots of shows. And now he's directing Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard as well. And the Orville. So he's one of their favorite Star Trek directors. It was written by Renee Echeverria. And this was Renee's first episode as well. But Renee will become a story editor and have his hands on 25 episodes of TNG, co-created DS9. So another big Star Trek person just entering the scene for this episode. I was
convinced you're about to say Auberginois.
No, I wish. Because I love Rene Auberginois. Yeah. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
But yeah, I thought it was interesting that Frakes and Echevarria, who are 2 huge Trek names, this was their first episode doing these things.
Yeah, and I don't know that I've laughed harder at, definitely not in the TNG moment, than that moment. It was just so perfect.
Frakes is known for being able to find the comedy in scenes.
Yeah, the timing was perfect, and you know, a lot of the stuff that Lal's doing earlier is stuff that, you know, in a way we've seen, whether it's Spock or Data, we fish out of water kind of stuff. But I thought a lot of it was funnier, and some of that's just personal taste. Like I said, the taking the drink and it going all over, but that spot where she kisses him. And he's like, I gotta get out of here. Very relatable to me as well. But no, that's regardless. The timing was perfect. And it's one of those things we talk about in improv or whether actually in scripted work too, is like know when to get out. And it's like, we don't need anything more here. Boom, boom, boom. The story they told there was perfect. And it is just perfectly played. It was so good.
The Admiral's all upset that she's working in a bar. And I'm like, why? She's not like a little kid. She's an android. And also, this is the Enterprise D bar. It's not like a seedy bar. Wesley goes in there. Like, it's family friendly.
It's not Coyote Ugly. It's not. We
don't see the little kids on board go in there, but we see teenagers go in there.
I don't think it was about the morality of it so much as the concept of misusing property in his mind. The idea of you're wasting.
I thought it was purely about that she was young in a place like that.
So,
which didn't fit with what I think 10 Forward is.
Maybe.
So I guess it was kind of like in Return of the Jedi to do another Star Wars thing where C-3PO runs into R2-D2 on Jabba's barge, and he's like, what are you doing here? And R2-D2 is like, doo. He's like, well, I can see you're serving drinks. What are you doing here? It's beneath R2-D2 to be serving drinks, but
that's kind of where my head was going with it. It wasn't so much about like, sense. Oh my God, she's gonna be corrupted. It's like, why are you? I almost had to edit myself.
that's a fair conversation because we were talking to one of our favorite bartenders and he was talking about how he was glad he didn't have to go anywhere for Thanksgiving because his in-laws are like, so you're still doing that bartending thing? And he's like, it's what I do. It's how I bought this house or whatever with a lot, thanks to me.
It's how Steven bought me this house.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a good point, Keith. I think you're on the money there. I think that's very true. I love when Lal was like, why do I just have two hands? It's like, yeah. Why do you just have two hands?
I didn't catch that. Huh.
I mean, was it Eric, right? Isn't that?
Eric's had three hands.
Yeah. Why stop at two?
Well, she chose human.
Oh, that's true.
That's her fault.
True.
But why does it have to be a permanent choice? It seemed like it was easy enough. Let's change it. Yeah. Picard decides to ask Lal what she wants, which I thought was a relatively pivotal moment of the episode.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Oh, and the Admiral came on an Excelsior class ship. Nice to see they're still using them all the way up in Next Gen era. That was a solid ship class, the Excelsiors. Law feels scared. That's when we started to get the emotions.
Yeah.
Which was interesting and unexpected. I had forgotten that she got emotions. But I guess, like Data says, you want your kid to be better than you are. So I thought that was pretty cool. I like the scene where Picard tells Data to ignore the Admiral. When the Admiral's like, you got to get her. And Picard's like, belay that. Like, yeah, no. The Admiral overstepped his bounds. Of course Picard's going to appeal to a higher authority.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Admiral was not acting very Starfleet, in my opinion.
No, and I think at the end when he comes out and he's trying to help with her, fixing her, and I think that speech is great. I don't know if that speech is great, but I think Koster delivers it really well. Because in my head, I'm like, well, he knows he's kind of responsible, in a sense, for this. And,
the scene where he's telling Troy, Geordi, and Wesley that Law's dying.
Yeah.
I was glad they gave him that scene of redemption.
Me too.
Because that was without that, he's just such a stereotype.
Yeah. And he delivered it so well. Like I said, he's a good actor. I mean, that's why he's still working.
And he came away impressed by Data, which he should be. So
yeah, which again it's that MASH thing I always talk about. Like, you know what, you are good. Great speech though, but yeah.
I was gonna say that death scene itself, the fact that Law's saying I love you, Data, and Data's like I can't love you. I wish I could, and she's like, I'll love us for the both of us.
Yeah. And
then she thanks him for his life. I mean, that was really, really well acted and affecting.
Yeah, I thought it was an easy out, just saying there's a system failure, but it was touching it. I mean, they
hit the emotional beats.
Yeah.
Even if the logic doesn't withstand.
Yeah, it goes back to me realizing, she's probably not going to, I was positive she was not going to last past, but I didn't know how it was going to end up. And like I said, it's kind of an easy, like, we're not going to explain this real too much, but it makes sense though, that a system failure or some kind of issue totally makes sense. I mean, it's
also,
yeah.
But I like the tag on the end that Data downloaded her memories. So some part of her still exists.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like while it hasn't been really gone back to in canon very much, I'm sure they mentioned it again, but it's not a major part of the television show. I know there are some novels that have taken some freedom with that, jumped on that bit. And I feel like the show should have jumped on it more.
I thought it was a really thing. Yeah, I thought it was a really good thing too, and so good that this might be my last Star Wars mention. But this I think is legitimate. Well, I don't know if it's legitimate, but in the Solo movie, they take the droid's thoughts and they implant it in the Millennium Falcon. They do the same thing that that Data does here, so that she lives on and all that. Again, I have no idea if they stole or were influenced by it, but it's almost the same thing. I mean, except Data's not a ship, but other than that, it's very, very similar.
I thought some of the science of it, some certain things I didn't really pick up on until you guys were talking about it. So the idea that Data accidentally created something more advanced than him was very interesting. Yeah, that even if he's trying to exactly recreate himself, he touched on the idea that there could be quantum variables that he couldn't account for that were creating some of these other ideas. I mean, maybe he's missing emotions by just that much. I mean, there are all kinds of semantics throughout the series I've been noticing about, like, especially it's almost like the Spock character, the idea that I don't have emotions. I can't do blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
I can't feel this. I can't give love. And it's really just, he can still care. He can still exhibit caring. He can still make decisions based upon what a emotional person would do under those circumstances.
Well,
because he's arriving at a slightly different way. So go ahead.
Yeah, and that just reminded me of the final scene, which I think where he kind of reiterates that, and then he mentions she's got her implanted in him. But I think he more or less recognizes, or the audience does, that the way everyone else is reacting, he says he isn't, but I think he is reacting it because Spock was always full of it too. He was half human, and there were many times he was like, "Well, this isn't affecting me," and it's like, and then either we'd see or we knew he was lying, even though Vulcans don't lie.
The idea of emotions and the way that works. I mean, not even all human beings react to things in the same way. And then how can you know what an emotion really is? How can you know what you're feeling, whether that matches up or lines up with everyone else? Because you're just going based upon words and movies you've watched, and you don't think that you're feeling this thing that you're supposed to be feeling. But how do you really know? And I think it's because he's always told himself that, and other people have told himself that he can't. But yeah, so there's that.
I have a question, and I know the answer is no, but based on, I'm guessing, but do you guys think Data tries again?
To build a daughter?
To have,
No.
Or
No, but he finds other ways to try to connect to humans.
Okay. I guess there's several ways he could go about it, which is one, I can do better. I can avoid this system failure next time. But I think what you're saying, Jimmy, is he already learned everything he needed to, or maybe he thinks he did.
I mean, I don't know that he learned everything he needed to, but I also think, I don't know. I don't feel like he's going to repeat something unnecessarily.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot with androids in Star Trek Picard, as Keith mentioned, but Data does not ever actually have another child. This is his one and only child. So he does better the next time he gets a cat.
Okay.
And the cat is a reoccurring character.
I thought about that,
including into the films. So
I was thinking about that as when I was first mentioning it, thinking about Jeffrey, but realized it's probably more like Spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Data's cat's great. Data will eventually get emotions. Data has other things to go through.
Yeah.
But yeah, parenthood is not one of them.
Okay.
Jumping off your Commodore thing, or rather, what's his name? About the Admiral not seeming like Starfleet. And it's almost like you guys answered your own question earlier, that was a great point. The idea that the great captains we see don't want to be promoted. So that's almost ended up being the antithesis of Star Trek, or rather Starfleet is wanting to rise to power. So
we do see some good admirals from time to time. Yeah, I feel like we got a couple good admirals in some Star Trek movies already. And there's a great admiral in Deep Space Nine. So we'll see some good admirals.
As well, and obviously Kirk, but Spock says,
Kirk.
Anything else is a waste.
I think
of
he was a
material.
bad admiral because he still wanted to be a captain. That's the problem. It's
and even when Kirk's a terrible admiral. That's
terrible. What Spock says. Spock's like, you being anything but a starship captain is a waste of material.
Well, rethink the motion picture if you weren't a fan of Kirk and you were a fan of Decker, and Decker gets the ship, and as soon as he gets the ship, this admiral comes in and takes over.
Yep.
That is what the bad admirals do.
Yeah.
Kirk's the Commodore of that movie.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, I still like it, even though that.
Oh, me too.
Yeah,
that's just because we love Kirk.
I thought of it that way. That's great.
Yeah.
Alternate episodes.
Mine is, and this has been done in movies, and including 2001. Spoiler alert. When Lal feels
Star Trek number 2001,
she just starts murdering everybody that might hurt her or Data.
So it becomes iRobot, the Will Smith movie?
Yeah, or HAL 9000, or this is an old 80s movie with Christy Swanson where she's the kid's neighbor and she dies, and so he creates a robot version of her, and then she starts killing everybody. I can't think of the name of it. I will look that up while you guys talk about your own.
My alternate episode is Yar stayed alive and she gave birth to Data's daughter.
Ooh.
And it would make no sense logically, so...
I feel like if you tried hard enough, you could do something with an actual cyborg rather than just an android.
Sure.
But
that's what we have the Borg for.
True.
We'll get to Borg children. It's just going to take a while.
Oh, Deadly Friend was the name of that movie. And as much as I used to be a fan of Christy Swanson, she's a Trump supporter. So,
oh man,
sorry guys.
Well,
She's the original Buffy.
I was about to say when you mentioned that, first thing I thought
She's not my Buffy.
Was Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and then eventually, like season 6, there was the robot.
She's in two of my favorite movies, Dude, Where's My Car and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And
love Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, but
Dude, Where's My Car? Great sci-fi film.
That's a fair point.
I actually have never seen it, but It's All Been Done. The Bare Naked Ladies podcast was talking about that film today and why it was sci-fi.
Sounds like we got it either, actually.
Sounds like we got a special episode coming up.
Perhaps.
I've seen it 150 times, probably.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. They both said once was enough for them.
Wow.
Once is probably sufficient for most people.
Wesley, scale 1 to 10.
1. I thought he was.
Yeah.
I was at least a 2.
I'm gonna do a 2 because of his pants.
Oh yeah.
So if Keith and I are at a 2 and Steven's at a 1, it's 1.7. Who was your annoyance of the episode?
Admiral? Yeah.
Had to be. Yeah. I mean, not much else you can do.
I'm gonna go Picard again. As much as I felt he redeemed himself, I really had a problem with his initial reaction.
As soon as I said that, I considered it. I was like, well, but yeah.
A crush. Anybody want to choose Lal or Lieutenant Ballard?
I thought about both of them, but I'm going to stick with
Mrs. Apgar.
Yeah. The Seinfeld and other reasons they're going to hold strong.
Keith?
That's tough. I mean, Lal would be a good choice here, but I'm going to stick with the captain, I think.
I'm going to stick with Captain Garrett as well. Ranking the episode, do we think it's near the top or more towards the middle?
I feel like we're close to where we were last week. Maybe not.
Me too.
I feel like we're around the price and whatever was below that, maybe.
Deja Q.
Yeah, feel like we're around there.
Okay, we can start there.
Which surprises me because I didn't necessarily think I felt that way, but I thought, again, the more we talked about it, I'm like, no, and again, when I finished watching last night, I'm like, I enjoyed this.
I feel like Deja Q is above this, but that's
really
okay.
Sorry,
I would have put this above Deja Q.
I would have too. I think they're kind of similar episodes. People dealing with trying to be human.
I think I'd put this above The Price as well.
I would.
Wow, I don't know about that.
I would probably put it below The Price. I'm doing the opposite recency bias. I'm doing nostalgia bias of an episode we watched 6 weeks ago. That's
hilarious. I'm there too. I think it's just.
I would have stopped after The Price. I would have put it below Who Watches the Watchers.
Yeah, but I think it deserves to be in that area. So.
Okay, so we can put it between The Price and Deja Q, which would put it number 5 for the season.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Keith, you said you would have gone below Deja Q. Would you have gone below A Matter of Perspective?
I think it depends on how he looks at it. It depends on how you look at it. Yes,
Steven wins. Oh. Steven wins the episode.
That's the problem. When you start going lower, because I was okay with putting it above Deja Q when we started talking about it, but then, man, no, it really is a matter of perspective, unfortunately.
I think at this point, Steven, I would have gone a little higher. Keith would have gone a little lower. Steven's the middle. Last week I was the middle. Keith would have gone higher. Steven would have gone lower. We're in this range.
Yeah.
We gotta get back to that thing where we make Keith go first.
I
kind of did this time in a way.
A Matter of Perspective is number 7, and I think that means we have 7 really great episodes this season already. So next week is another big one. It's called Sins of the Father. The description is a Klingon commander comes aboard the Enterprise in an officer exchange program, much to the chagrin of the crew. So basically opposite of Riker's.
Yeah.
But the actual story is a lot more than that. There's stuff with Worf's father mentioned. I mean, Worf's dad's dead, but stuff about Worf's father. We meet Tony Todd, who plays the reoccurring role of Kern. We also meet Patrick Massat as Duras, a reoccurring Klingon whose family has long implications in the franchise in TNG. Right. So Duras, Kern, Klingons, it's another major episode and a big Worf episode. I'm excited. I'm totally ready for it. Until then, today is a good day to die, but live long.
Teach your children well and prosper.
And make sure they have good self-esteem.
And good skin and contractions and emotions.
I cannot agree.
It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?